Recording in progress.
Okay, Dave, you were a fraction too early. I think.
Look, he had a couple of false starts because of my Zoom
We have what, like
challenges.
3
So
false starts this time?
I'm sorry, Dave.
Can't operate
I'm
under these
sorry. It's
difficult
stressful.
conditions. It's very upsetting.
Also,
Right,
like
so
you peaked last week, and it's really hard to reproduce that sometimes.
It is.
so you peaked last week, so we could stop.
9. Entschuldigung. That's all the German I know.
Oh yeah, nah.
So Sophie, see, before we talk about the film today, I have a question for you from one of my friends
Where
regarding.
the babies come from?
Not that one. Regarding our chat last week about scary nipples.
Yeah.
So the question was, because we were talking about, you know, you liking a t-shirt bra and hiding scary nipples and whatnot, but
I just don't want to see. I don't want to see.
Is it only women's erect?
No, everyone's.
Oh, everyone's. Okay.
In fact, I would say it was. If I had to accuse someone of creating this issue for me, I'm going to say it's Adam Marley, who Margot met in high school because they went to one of those, like, we're in year 11, 12 high schools, and we're almost a little bit like university. You know how Australia tends to do that now? They've got these, like, they're like private schools, but it's kind of like, it's all free. Anyway, so Margot went to one of those in year 11, and she met Adam there. And Adam just always had the most erect nipples of any person in the history of the world. You could just always see his nipples through his shirt. And I feel like that is where it's a bit this thing where you look and it's got these aggressive nipples staring at you. And I think, so in fact, I would say it was a man's nipples who created my particular issue with seeing the definition of a nipple through a t-shirt. As I said, love a naked nipple, big fan, just don't want to see them aggressively pointing at me through a shirt like this.
I have to say, since we had this chat last week, like, I've just been really nipple conscious all week. And at times I'm like, do I need to tell Sophie about this? No, she probably doesn't want to know if I have an erect nipple.
Tell me every time.
Scary nipple.
Constantly terrified by my own nipple.
So anyway, nipples aside.
Nipple.
So.
I do have 2.
Nice recovery.
Oh, it's like we've just started. It's all downhill. Look, I had a very early lunch and I've just been drinking a lot of wine, I think. Just a bit too
You've had an early lunch wine. I've got like my comfort scarf on, and you've got some beer. We're gonna have a good time.
Dave has a Southern Cross on him, which I need him to explain.
I'm wearing a Melbourne Ice hockey hoodie. And
do you want to see my stolen hockey stick?
Yeah.
It won. So did I show this for that class I'm doing with Tess, where you do like exercise and hockey? The stick she brought over is the one that she used when the Australian women won the World Ice Hockey Championship.
Oh, amazing.
Is that not really irresponsible?
That's probably fine.
Yeah. Look at this. Look at this super nice fucking hockey stick that I shouldn't have in here.
Look at that. It looks all carbon fiber and fancy.
And it's like, and she does the thing with the tape on it. She taped it for me. Don't know how
Yeah,
it works.
it's so you can rip knee down clappers from the blue line.
That's me playing hockey. All right, I'll put it back.
Good job, buddy. Good job.
Luckily, this segues really naturally into the film.
We watched Mighty Ducks.
So it's October, team, and my project for October was we're going to watch each of our favorite horrors, and then we're going to build up to like ending the month with Halloween, of course. So this week we started with you, Sophie.
We did. So I think we established like last week when maybe we're picking like my absolute favorite horror movie is Village of the Damned, the 1960s version. But we already watched that for horror. And I the fact that you guys liked it made me so happy, because inside I was just waiting for you guys to be like, nah, this is old trash, and I would have wept tears of blood. But because we'd already watched it for Horror Club, but like before we started recording, it seemed silly to recycle. So I thought about what is the other horror movie, or what's another horror movie that I've seen a disgusting number of times, and it was Event Horizon. So we watched that, and I'm gonna say, I fucking loved it, guys. It's like, I know that there may be some issues. Not interested. I love everything about it.
I quite enjoy Event Horizon. I think this was my third watch maybe of it. I don't watch it clearly nearly as much as you do, but it is one that I had seen before and one that you've seen before. And you're quite into spacey film.
I enjoy sci-fi horror. Obviously, we watched Pandorum recently. This is same kind of creative team. Feels almost like it could be in the same universe. It's got that same kind of mid-noughties kind of feel to it.
Also had like, you know, the start telling you dates that things happen, which I enjoy, putting me in the narrative. But like,
the computer sound. Something.
Yeah. Also, the first of them was in the past. It was 2015.
Yeah, 2015, which I love because I was like, that didn't happen. What's going on?
It was.
And no mention of a pandemic.
No mention at all. I was gonna say the last time, because I was just like, I haven't seen this for ages. And I was thinking, the last time I saw it was at the beginning of this year at the Ritz. Like Ritz did like a 4K restoration-y thing of it. And I went and I watched it.
They did a 4K restoration of Event Horizon.
Restoration, like a 4K rendition of.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a restoration. That was because I feel like when I go to Ritz, they usually either go like 4K or like 35 mil celluloid. Like you get one or the other, and I think they went for 4K this time. But so actually, because I was like, I haven't seen it for such a long time. It was probably about March was the last time that I watched this movie, and it's just very good. That's all I can say.
All right, see you next week.
And that's okay. So the premise is we've got like Sam.
The premise is
space.
So
we've got the Event Horizon. She's a special ship. She can do special things, but we lost her, right? And it's the biggest disaster in space history because of the ship that's going to go like the furthest we'd ever seen ever, and she just fucking disappears. And so then we're on the Lewis and Clark, which I love. Which is those explorers of like the Pacific Northwest and like the Louisiana Purchase. Is that what Lewis and Clark did? Aren't they American?
I don't know. I was about to ask if anyone knew, and it seems like you do.
Yeah, they're like I don't know how I know this, probably from consuming too much American content as an Australian child, but I'm pretty sure Lewis and Clark were like who were our talking to the Scottish people. We had the two people who like went over the Blue Mountains, whose name I can't remember. Anyway,
are they the ones that ate each other?
No, that's they were different ones because have you seen Cannibal the Musical?
Yes, a long
original
time
Trey Parker and Max Stone. So that's different. Anyway, so Lewis and Clark were basically like they did a lot of like exploring America in the early days. I think it was the Pacific Northwest and the Louisiana Purchase, I think. Anyway, so that's our rescue ship. Great cast. Every time I watch this movie, I just forget how good the cast is.
Yep.
They're all a little bit pissy because they're on holidays and they get called in to go and like rescue the Event Horizon, which is just like floating out near Neptune. Like this fucking thing disappeared, it reappears. We've got Sam Neill, who is like the very enthusiastic, slightly strange creator of like I presume like he came up with like the mind technology. I don't believe, because it's like I built it, right? Like he didn't build the ship, but he makes some kind of suggestion that it's like, anyway. So he's there, we've got to go rescue it. Turns out, should we do some science first? So what happens, the reason that like Event Horizon is like such a special ship is because it's just like fucking bends space-time. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, what is the fastest distance between 2 points in space? Straight line? No, we just bend this fabric of space-time and then we're basically create a singularity and we can pass from one side through to the other. That's what Event Horizon was like attempting to do.
And it was nicely illustrated with a girly mag poster, of course.
Right? I just feel like there's a few instances in this movie where I was like, you were made in the past because we've got a little bit of sexism happening that we're okay with, but that's fine. So he basically explains that like this is the thing that happened when it like did that and like made the gravity drive work to bend space-time to go through the thing, like it fucking disappeared. We don't know where it's been for the last 7
years. And now it's back. Everyone thought it was just gone forever. Because I think what the chat was that it had exploded or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what they told everyone.
They've been destroyed.
Yeah. And then they're like, we're going to go retrieve it. So like the crew of the ship are a little bit like hard pass, but like they can't really. So then they go into, what do they call it in this movie when they go to sleep in space? So the ship Thank you. So
I think it's stasis actually, which might be the English version. Because Sean Pertwee says it So he says it, or no. Jason Isaacs says it. Jason Isaacs is the medical officer, and he says stasis because he English.
Yeah.
And like, I think before they all go into that, the bits that I was commenting to you about were, because we got like Sam Neill featuring at the start. What is his name in it? I should know. Oh, Dr. Weir, of course. So the first thing I commented on was because my friend is Dr. Weir. She is not scary. But yeah, this person being called Dr. Weir all the way through it kept throwing me to thinking about Amanda. I miss Amanda. But anyway, he is thinking about his wife. I don't know. So the comment I had to Dave was just the excessive amount of photos that he has of his partner, gal person.
I did jump ahead a little bit. In the very beginning, like Sam Neill like wakes up on like what is a very large space station and is in his little space station bed, and he has like a fuck ton of photos.
So many. And actually, weirdly, I don't know why I'd forgotten what happened, but there were bits of this film, even though I've seen it a couple of times, I'd forgotten. And I was like, Dave, that's excessive. Like when you go into space, just have one picture of me. Like, that's fine. That's fine.
He maybe does have some psychological problems.
Oh yeah, no, that I get. But it was even when you go into his bathroom as well, there's a picture of her in his bathroom too, and I'm like, she's just everywhere. Come on. So and you were looking at me like, don't you get this, Karen? I'm like,
he wakes up, all the pictures, like he goes in, he shaves. We have a very poignant look at a dripping tap in a bathtub and his cutthroat razor, which like becomes a theme later on. And he walks out and he looks kind of like through the window of the like space station, and you see like, oh, space station.
And he's upside down.
He's upside down, and there's a suggestion that Lewis and Clark is appearing, and he's got to go to docking bay 4 or whatever to get on. He gets on, everyone's in a bit of a rush, they go into stasis, they wake up, they understand why they're there, and they're all just like, fuck no, but it's too late, because it's like, here's what we're doing. It's like a search and rescue mission. We're going to go get the crew from Event Horizon, and so they get to Event Horizon. But
I think in that scene when they're all chatting together, there's some really nice tension that's built up that reminds me a bit of like Aliens, where, you know, you've got Ripley brought into Aliens to saying we're here for like explaining what's going on, and people that are just a bit grumpy that don't want to be there and it was a similar kind of.
The ships are great. Like the ships are like, it's all pre-touch screen, so like there's just loads of buttons everywhere. Yeah. And it really feels like an intermediate, like when you watch something like Alien or Aliens, it looks like an intermediate stage between now and then, because you can really see the heritage of those films in this film, but they've really like wound it forwards a little bit, but not as far as that. But also there's no touchscreen shit, so there's just buttons and pipes and gears.
It's very like industrial, but in a space.
Yeah, totally. Love it.
And it's just, again, like that kind of banter, as I say, reminiscent of what you saw in like Alien and Aliens, with people with their different roles in the ship, and people that are prepared to be just, all right, well, this is my job, this is what I'm going to do. Leader taking charge, big Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Before he was quite as famous as he became.
Yeah, and this is the thing, because I was trying to work out, when did I see this movie for the first time? And I think it was probably when Lawrence Fishburne was already famous. And then I went back and I was like, oh, it's Lawrence Fishburne. I'm like, no worry. But yeah, I like forget how early, because it's late.
It must be
97.
Yeah.
It's so we were trying to work out, because we were like, Sam Neill, when was Sam Neill a big deal? But of course it's post Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's post Jurassic Park.
Yeah. So like, so I quite liked like lots of characters. Sorry, what? Yeah.
Oh no, I was about to completely digress in the Sam Neill thing, where there was that thing that happened. In fact, it was this year or last year, where Junkie lost its shit because someone finally noticed that on Sam Neill's Australian Space Agency thing, he had an Australian flag that had the Aboriginal flag where the Union Jack was.
Yeah.
And I remember like getting a bit excited because like Event Horizon was in the press, but also like, guys, didn't you watch this? Like we all knew that. Like we were all very comfortable. We knew it and it was great. But anyway, so that was my Sam Neill digression.
We did comment on that as well when we saw it within it. Yeah. But yeah, no, like, so I like that initial scene where you've got this tension because Sam Neill, Dr. Weir, scientist, hasn't actually been in space before, has he? So he's done the sciencey junk, but like,
well, like he definitely hadn't gone into his like.
He's not done stasis.
as fast as
Yeah, and they make it so they also call them grav couches. So I think the insinuation is that the accelerations of the ship is so much that unless you're like encased in fluid of some kind, you can't actually survive the acceleration.
it like liquefies your skeleton or something.
I think they say something to that effect. Yeah, grav couches.
Yeah, so he's never been on one of those before, I think. And the idea, anyway, so they wake up, they get the little briefing. They
also Dr. Weir gets out of his tube, wanders about, not as sexy
he has
as
like a little wig out. Yeah,
he has a wig out. He also doesn't have, the joyous package as in Pandorum. So it's not.
Do you know what it reminded me of? It's like it's that old man barrel chest. Like I just got fucking Jimmy Stewart kind of like.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Where it's like you're not like you're still strong and you've got like broad shoulders, but there's like something like slightly old man physique
because
about
you've worked out holding those like rolling pin things, doing a lot of this.
Yeah, like 100%. Yeah, exactly. So it was just like I think every time I see it, I'm all like old Sam Neill barrel chest. But yeah, for sure. So he comes out of his little tube early, and he's like walking around, and then he starts hearing the voice, and it's actually the woman from the previous scene, when he was the photos. Sorry,
the photos,
all the fucking photos, and there's like a couple of little jump scares in there as well. So he's like walking around and looking, and then like a roller door goes up to what is like we find out that it's the kitchen area, and it's like what? And he hears this voice, and he follows it, and it's like the back of we find out his wife, and she's like sitting there, and he's talking to her, and then he turns her chair around. And is that when she has no
eyes pretty early on.
She has no eyes pretty early on, and it's a bit like, whoa, that's fucked. And like I think at that stage she makes a comment about like him being home now or something. And she's got the no eyes, and then he wakes up, and it turns out that he's just awake in his fluid tube and is having like a wee freak out. And then it comes out, and there's like a lot of sexist jokes, and like Cooper, who's played by the guy who was in like Judging Amy, that TV show, and then you got like Jolie Richardson, who was like, it's so good anyway. And
and she's like, it's like, can I get dressed before I have to go and do my job? And it's like,
Lawrence Fishburne is just like, no, hurry up. But
certainly not playing it very straight all the way through the film.
That's right. And then they go to then we've got like the debrief session. We understand why we're here. I do really appreciate that like Sam Neill does like the best impersonation of a scientist not knowing how to communicate. Explain this in layman's terms, and it's like blah blah space-time, this like quantum gravity something, and then I think it's Cooper who says something like, like fuck layman's terms, do you speak English? And I was like, I feel like we could show that to a lot of stuff.
Like, can I say it's a bit weird? Like someone actually says, don't start with that physics shit. And it's like, you're all astronauts.
Yeah.
You're all fucking astronauts.
Yeah. It's a bit weird, right? Because it's like, okay, yes, you have different roles, but what this reality is not suggesting is that like the entire planet lives in space now because they've fucked the Earth or something. It's like, there are people who work in spaceships, and it's like, you were clearly selected. And so this is this thing where, I forget his name, like Justin, like Baby Bear. And I was like, you are young, mate. It's like, why did you get picked? Of all the fucking people, it's like, how old are you? What studies have you done? How did you get yourself on the spaceship? Because it's like, obviously, like, it's like, but as you said, like, you think they would at least know some of these things.
Yeah.
Being like the elite few on like planet Earth who now work in spaceships.
So I mean, like they all spacewalk, for example. So like they all must have taken some Newtonian physics.
But then they clearly do, because he basically says faster than light travel, and they're all like, oh, Einstein, So they do get it enough to like protest when they're just like, well, you can't go faster than, like, you're breaking the laws of general relativity. Like this is fucked. You can't. So it's like they get it to a certain degree, but they're just like, oh, but now you've said 3 words that I don't know. Come on, egghead, speak.
Yeah.
But
I guess, they need someone to speak for the audience, and I guess they speak for the audience.
That is Cooper, I believe.
Yeah.
And so what happens is when we find Event Horizon just like floating in like the fucking atmosphere of Neptune, like the orbit of Neptune.
Of Neptune, yeah.
It's real foreboding.
Yeah, it is.
Real foreboding. Also, lots of winds in the orbit of Neptune. So, like, we're trying to approach, and it's all like a bit shaky and fucked. And then we see it, and it's a big ship. Like, is she a big ship?
And is this around about the time where, so you were talking about the science bits that bother you, but the other bit that bothered me was, maybe this is when, no, it must be when they're approaching it, because they play a distress call that the Event Horizon has put out. So it's
Sam Neill's giving the debrief, like, this is
so
the
he's like,
communication we have for them, and it's people screaming.
And what really bothered me with that bit, I don't want to like crush your film or anything, but like, again, in the sciencey weird stuff was like, he said, oh, if this is even a language, and then the doctor dude is like, the medical dude is like, oh, it sounds like Latin, and you're kind of like, come on, like, you know, someone, it's like
no
NASA.
one in this, exactly.
It's not even this, no one in NASA has gone, oh, maybe, but this one dude listening to this garbled message once goes, oh, I think it's Latin, and that was a bit where it took me out again, because I was like, come on.
I do want you to know, Karen, that any criticisms, they fall on deaf ears. So you can criticize all you want, and it will not change how I feel about it. So don't worry. Go nuts.
Maybe that's true. Maybe they had deciphered it, but Sam Neill was deliberately keeping it stum because he didn't want to dissuade them. So he was keeping it to himself because of his deep-seated
all right, I can go with that.
He's playing the recording with people screaming and then speaking a foreign language. So we do hear that. So it sounds like Latin, and DJ, I think it's even at that stage that he establishes that the voice is probably saying, save me. Right, so that's that. But then it changes. So they get to the Event Horizon. There's like some cute little things where they have to dock with the Event Horizon, and they find like an antenna bit, and then Sam Neill's like, that's not a load-bearing structure, and they clamp something down on it, and they're like, it is now, and it's all like, you know, like a little bit, you know, they're making it lighter, and they're doing so they scan it because they can from the Lewis and Clark, and it turns out there's like the deep cold inside, so like none of the life systems are active. People would only survive if they're in a little stasis thing, and they do a bioscan, which is crazy because there's like biological life forms, but I can't pinpoint whatever. So you're like, well, that's not good. Like, that's not a great start to whatever's happening. And then Sam Neill wants on the ship like a crazy motherfucker. So I feel like even at that stage, it's like it begins a descent into Sam Neill being batshit.
Mental.
So he's like, I want on it, and it's like, look, dude, like Lawrence Fishburne's like, you can come on it, just chill out. We just gotta like get on there. We've just got to
follow protocol.
Like once we're there and we've secured it, of course you can come on board. Like, we're not trying to like withhold your ship baby from you. Chill out, mate. And they get on there, and
three of them go on, right? So
we've got Justin Baby Bear.
Lawrence Fishburne. And we've got what's her face?
Is it Peters? Is it the medical woman?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's her. The one that's very motherly over
Mama Bear.
Yeah, because we've already, at some point, I think we've established with her that she shouldn't really have been on the ship because it was her little boy's birthday or something.
She missed the birthday, and she wanted to, and the ex-husband's going to take the boy for Christmas, and it looks like he has like health problems and he's in a wheelchair, and because she's watching like a little video on like an iPad type thing.
So she gets that she has to be there, but like her mind is with her kids, which becomes quite important.
Once the ship gets inside your head.
So it's just the three of them that go on,
and they all have a wee fright, actually.
And they all have a wee fright separately.
All have a wee fright,
because they go on, but they separate.
Yeah, they
each of them goes their own ways.
Foolish.
Good idea, gang.
Yeah.
But then I guess like they had the little bioscans being like, well, there's nothing that seems to suggest it's a threat. Like, the stuff's a bit weird. We can't pinpoint a life form. Like, let's just go. Because so I think the idea is they scan it because the scanning results are like skewy. If they're like, we've got to do like manually brute force, like search and rescue kind of thing, as opposed to like, everyone's dead, let's go home kind of thing. So you're right, they get on there and then they split up, which is mental.
Horror movie 101.
Yeah, and that's when I start to like do this because
So Lawrence Fishburne.
I'm very comfortable with all the jump scares now, so I'm just like, I know what's coming.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne gets scared by a glove, I believe. A scary glove. It's a scary glove.
Gloves are scary, dude.
He says a bad word when he sees the glove because it's a scary glove.
Yeah.
Naughty scary glove words.
I can't remember what happens to Peters, but I think she has.
She gets she gets the face, As in, like, she like turns.
Oh yeah, corpse face.
It's like a floating ice corpse, just like appears at her a little bit.
Oh, I jumped at that. I definitely jumped at that.
Yeah, for sure.
And Baby Bear has the worst time.
Oh my god, he has
like
terrible
like,
time.
this is the beginning of the end for. I mean, granted, he survives, but it's like, you know, so he's gone down to the what do they call it?
Yeah,
the gravity drive. Thank you, Dad. It's like I've seen this a lot of times, but
it's like that's going in there. Like, so I kind of love that it's this sort of steampunk nightmare,
heavy metal,
going into space.
Gothic.
Yeah.
But also science. like the other thing that gets me about the space too is like, so we're creating a spaceship.
Yes.
It's going to go places where there's no gravity and people can float. And in this particular room, let's fill it with spikes. Let's have lots of very big pointy spikes.
Karen, what you're missing is those are very important gravity spikes.
Okay, that's
gravity drive works with but you're right. But the best thing is, like, to get to the gravity drive, he has to go through it's like that tunnel that's like you're in a fun house, and it's got colored lines in a tube, and they're rotating so you get dizzy. It's got one of those rooms.
So effective though. Like so great. So great. Like it's just like a jaggy pipe that's spinning round and it looks great.
And so you go through there and you get to the steampunk, super dangerous gravity drive. And what I really love
the heavy metal tokamak.
Fucking it is. And it's like, you know how it's like they do a lot of just like, because it's like it's kind of like a gyroscopy sort of thing. So you got your big spiky bomb sphere. And then you've got like these rings around it, and they're all fucking rotating, and it's terrifying. And then every so often all the things line up, and then you get like a flash of light, like super bright LEDs is what it has to be. And I like that every so often they're just like illuminated in people's eyes. Like it's just like it's
one of those things where I think it looks really, really cool, but just would never happen in a spaceship. Like I think visually it looks awesome, and it also looks scary, and it totally does the job as a horror piece.
Maybe it didn't look like that when the ship went, but it came back looking like that.
Okay, that's a good point, Dave.
What happened to it? And again, Sam Neill's just keeping that shit to himself.
Okay. But also, like Sam Neill at the beginning is like he's just like he's not seeing. He's just like they're talking through voices because he's been told like you can't go on the ship yet. Because we've got to like stabilize whatever. So he's like, yes, that's the gravity drive, but he's not actually seeing what Justin's seeing.
Yeah.
And then by the time he does see it in real life, he's like a wee bit crazy. So maybe you could be right, Dave.
And you're right, because there's also the moments when we're following the woman where you've got the corpse behind her, where like she's
Peters.
That's the one. I can't remember her name. Peters.
That's right. It's like, as we've established, we're terrible at names in all of the movies, but this particular movie is one of the only ones I've got a grasp of the names.
I would hope so.
Even if I don't, like, I get confused with the order of events and exactly what happens. It's like I've got those names fucking down pat.
I think with her, I can just go with Mama Bear, and that works with me. So when she's in that room and there's a corpse around her, there's also the other bit that made me jump was, you know, where like she's in a very dark room, but they flashlight in the background, and you can see that there's some like bloody, gory
in fact,
on the windows.
It's perfect because she's walked in. It's like she's in the medical bay, right? And she's walked down, and there's like a bit of light, and she's looking down, and she goes like, "Oh, we've got a bit of blood here." And she's looking at a thing on like a tabletop, and then it's like you go to wide shot, and there's another flash. Because like what I presume is like those flashes of light is they've suggested they're in like a storm, kind of thing. So that's like it's space lightning. So the space lightning illuminates just the whole room, and you see that's like not only like the little patch of blood she saw. The whole, like the walls are just fucking splattered with like blood and gunk. And it's just like, turn around. Like it's much worse than you think already. Yeah.
So like, I think that's all super effective. And then, returning to your baby bear that has...
Yeah, so baby bear has gone in. We've got our little like gyroscope doom gravity drive. And what happens? It fucking engages.
Yeah, he fucking goes in it.
I mean, I can't remember now. I don't know why I don't remember that one so much. I think I'm still caught up with like bloody walls. But like, does he hear voices? Does someone speak to him, or does he just like just?
So I think he's in there, and then this thing, and he's like describing it. It's all fucked, and it's like.
And he just goes to touch it, right?
Yeah, because then all of a sudden, what happens? It aligns. So it does that thing where it aligns, but then it stays aligned, and there's just like this flash of like light energy, right? So that's like not the shockwave that comes later, but like the flash of light energy, and he's like, whoa! And then in the center of it, where you previously saw the spiky bomb, it's just this kind of like black surface, and he walks up to it, and then he like touches
it's weird, kind of fluidy black,
it's like fluidy, liquidy, and he like pokes it, and then it like moves, and it's like, that's fucking weird. And then the dickhead puts his hand in it. He puts his whole he like pokes, and he's like, that's weird, I'm gonna put my whole hand in it. And then all of a sudden you got the eyes, and he's like, shit. And then he gets pulled in because he's on like a little like I was gonna say a metal rope. Like you've got the little things.
Yeah, like a lifeline thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one time I've been fishing once, and I caught a fish, and it was like that, where I caught the fish, and then all of a sudden the reel just went, and I was like, fuck. What am I was like, it was
you
like
caught a fish on a spaceship around Neptune's orbit.
yeah, 100%. And so he goes in, and they're just like, well, this is bad. But then no one does anything, and the reason that we get like the reason this events stop is because like it runs out of line. So he goes so far in, it runs out of line, it jolts, and then you get this fucking insane big shockwave that like spreads the whole way through the event horizon, and then also the Lewis and Clark, and it damages the Lewis and Clark. So this is the big issue, where it's like they're all there, and then it's that space movie thing where there's like sparks. It's just always sparks.
Yeah.
Shaking
explosions
and
sparks. Yep.
Yeah, so you got the shaking and sparks, and then what happens is that like I think they like it fucking breaches the hull. Like there's a hole in the hull now from this shaking and sparks, and they're just like, fuck, what do we do? And they're like, we've got to all get on the event horizon, because it's like that's at least sealed. That didn't get broken by this like shockwave. At that stage, like Cooper is like, I'm gonna go get Baby Bear, so like he's gonna go retrieve the person who went into the liquid, because I think so they did have vision, right? But then it was like when he actually walked into the gravity drive room, like the video cut out, and they couldn't see anything that was happening.
Yeah. And so ultimately, like they're all already a bit apprehensive, understandably, about going to the event horizon, but particularly Smitty. Tell me the name, but the dude with the porno mag.
That's Smitty.
Smitty. He's just like, nah, I'm not doing it. I don't want to go on this. And it's like, no, we have to. No, I'm not going on the event horizon. Don't want to do it. Not happening. But yeah, with the need is there. They have to go.
So it's like, I was going to say something, Dave. You just looked very like.
No, it's just his chair's doing a very eerie creak next to me. Oh. So,
yeah, so then Cooper goes, and by the time he gets to the gravity drive, you've got Baby Bear just like catatonically floating out of the black liquid surface, and he catches him, takes him to the medical bay. By that stage, everyone is like on the event horizon, because like this is the place where we can go, because like there's a hole in the other spaceship. I think at that stage we send out a couple of people just like to check the status, and they're just like, we can just get a big bolt gun and some scrap metal from somewhere, and we'll just plug up the fucking hole.
Essentially space gaff.
Like literally, like it looks, yeah, it's like the space version of fucking gaffer tape. Like it's just like that much of a job. But yeah, so then, and then the other thing that we want to do is they bring the event horizon online. Is that the time where they've got the scene where they reinvoke gravity?
Oh yeah.
And just like all of like the blood and like the floating frozen shit, just like
popsicle man.
The corpse falls and then breaks into a million pieces. And like I was immediately thinking, like the corpse is in a million pieces and it's really cold. It's like they really want to sweep that up before it gets warm, like. Because 100%. Once it's warm, the cleanup is going to be a fucking nightmare.
Be a nightmare, but they
just like sweep that chap up while it's still a bit barky.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this
save yourself a couple of trips.
Yeah, it's so good. To, like I feel like there are some like bits in this movie that are just a bit disgusting.
That's one of them.
This is where we need like a Quickie the dog or something that's floating about in space that can eat up your bits of human.
Dead body.
Or a Justine, maybe a Justine that needs a little nibble.
Oh yeah, if we combine like this week and last week, we've solved all of these fucking problems.
But yeah, that didn't occur to me. That's a good point. The thing that occurred to me when that happened was like, so most things broke apart, but I think there was like was there a hand or something? There was quite a big chunk that didn't shatter that I was kind of watching going, well, maybe we would have thought that would
I think that would have, that would have.
Anyway, that was where I went, but your comment is much more important. So,
and
so returning to Baby Bear.
Maybe not. I mean, there's not a lot of muscle in the hand. There's almost no muscle in the hand.
You're the biologist, I don't know.
Is it just what? Is it just tendons, Dave? Is that what you're trying?
Yeah, all the muscles are in your arm.
Oh. Do I have any muscles in my hands? Like this?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
It seems like a muscle. That one's a muscle, but is that it?
I don't know.
We'll Google
but you don't have that many. There's like compared
I
to
believe,
like,
no, I definitely believe you. I feel like this is mainly tendons and bones and skin, 100%.
Yeah.
So really, I should have voiced my concerns out loud, and then you would have allayed them, and I could have concentrated more.
We were concentrating on the plot, though.
Yeah, which we are now not doing.
Yeah.
I'm really good at tendons.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ice Corpse broke.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it for another 5 minutes.
Returning to Baby Bear.
Baby Bear.
He's broken. Like
he's
he's
real catatonic. He's lying there with his open black eyes, but he's not responding to anything.
And the medic dude essentially is like, he might wake up like in 10 minutes. He might never wake up.
That.
Yeah, and I was like, well, you're really hedging your bets there, mate.
Yeah, I mean, you really have just said nothing.
Those are the options.
A thing might happen.
Yeah.
That's the end. All right, DJ Jason Isaac.
So he's left in the medical bay with Mama Bear, mostly. Like so those two are together.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the overarching objective now? There's to fix the Lewis and Clark.
They fix the Lewis and Clark. So the issue is, they were just like, originally when they went to the Event Horizon, Sam Neill is just like, we've got oxygen and we've got gravity and we've got all these things. Turns out that the CO2 scrubbers are fucked on Event Horizon. So they have to go back and get the CO2 scrubbers from the Lewis and Clark so they can breathe air, but we're only going to have like 20 hours. So the idea is that we've got to fix the Lewis and Clark, but we've also got this time limit at which stage we can't breathe anymore, which is quite.
And I think Smitty is one of the main people that's trying to fix the ship, because
he's just like, he's love it. So Smitty and Cooper basically the two people who go outdoors, and I think Smitty just like does not want to be in that fucking ship in any way, shape, or form. So it's like, send me into space and I'll fix it, no worries.
And this is when everyone starts to hallucinate. So Peter sees her son with blisters all over his legs.
Oh, it's fucked. There's little
boy. Oh, is that in that kind of tenty scene?
Yeah, so they're in the medical bay.
And
you've got these very like the metal bed thing. It's like if you're sick and they put you on a metal bed, it's like that's not the most comfortable.
But it's space though. It's space. Everything has to be now.
You're right. And then they've got the little tenty things, and she's hearing voices, and then she turns around, you've got the tent that's zipped up, and there's like, it looks like there's someone inside, there's light illuminating it. She goes over and she unzips it, and it's like her son who's like sitting there, and you can see his legs, but they're all like blistered and fucked, and he's talking to his mate, and she freaks out. And then
it's kind of like repeated, like, is that Sixth Sense-y kind of scene that
I haven't seen Sixth Sense actually.
Reminds me of that, like obviously of stats taken. That reminds me of Event Horizon.
I just feel like it's not a great movie, but the fact that Dave hasn't seen The Sixth Sense, I feel like we might need to rectify this.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's I can't do spoilers, but there's a kind of tenty scene with a sick person in the tent, and I remember when I saw that part, that scared me. So again,
the OC.
For sure. Look, I don't need to go and see a scary thing in a tent. Don't open the tent. Don't open the tent.
So she sees that. Lawrence Fishburne sees a burning man. Who's on fire, like very graphically.
On fire and talking to him. Yeah.
And I feel like there's one more hallucination. Someone else has a hallucination, some kind.
Isn't it not just Sam Neill again and again with his wife?
Sam Neill again with his wife.
Yeah. Because I feel like Jolie Richardson doesn't hallucinate. Mama Bear doesn't hallucinate. Cooper doesn't hallucinate. Justin is catatonic already.
Yeah.
Smitty is busy outside, and that's everyone.
And I have
But
to
Jason
say,
Isaac, so they have a chat about hallucinating.
yeah.
And Jason Isaac gets kind of uncharacteristically violent.
Mm.
Well, you get the impression he gets violent, and you get the impression
Isn't
that
it
because of the way everyone behaves towards him post being violent, that they're kind of like, "Are you okay?" And not
like
stop.
this is not normal.
Hey, Jason Isaac, stop being characteristically violent.
Yeah, stop being yourself.
Yeah, they're like, "Hey, what's up?"
It's more like a hey. You don't usually grab people and push them up against the wall and get like real aggressive with like a knife at them. No, it's not even a knife. It's just like a surgical instrument.
Scalpel.
So because they've all been, so they've had those few hallucinations, including, you know, the captain of the crew, and they've also had that point where I love Big Jolie in this, because like her chat was like, she's been doing the assessment and the bioscans and whatnot, and been trying to work out
wow, did she come up with a hypothesis?
It's like, yeah, the ship is alive.
Yeah,
that's what it seems to be. I have no other explanation for you.
So my question is, before that, is that because I feel like there's 2 times where we release more information about because they want to get into the logs, because they've got that little bit of audio, but they want to like work out what the fuck happened.
Yeah, so I think that's what the other Peters is working on that.
Yeah, because there's 2 bits. Because we first get the bit where it's just like we work out that it's
the ship's probably.
We get a bit more, and then we get like the big reveal.
Yeah, so I think it was speculation was the ship was alive, but it seemed nonsensical. And
kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it was oh yeah, the ship's having an immune reaction to us.
Yeah, because it's like she's like, it feels like it's a defensive thing. Like the fact that the ship has been like beyond anywhere that anyone's ever gone. Like, did it fucking bring back a life form? And like, this is a defensive reaction of this life form. Like, and then Lawrence Fishburne is like, are you trying to tell me the ship is alive? And it's like, well, yeah.
It's like, well,
sure,
why not?
Why not? Buddy.
Yeah.
And then they've got the hallucinations, and then. So basically what I was trying to work out is when your dude gets violent, and I think that might be later, because it's when they get to the point, well, you can clarify, Sophie, because you've seen it so many times, but it's like when they decide, right, we need to get off the event horizon, we're just going. It's essentially that idea of like, we'll get away and bomb it from space. It's the only way to be sure.
That's a little bit later. So
that is later, because there's the other reveal.
They have the first meeting about this. And then they have another meeting later on where they review the logs, they clean up the logs, and they see all this crazy shit on the log with like all this really dark, unpleasant imagery featuring the former crew. I
think DJ goes fucking nuts as a result of Smitty going nuts at Weir. So I think they're having a chat, and Weir says something that's a bit flippant, and then Smitty just goes fucking nuts at him and grabs him.
Yes.
And then DJ grabs him with the thing going like, it's just a ship. And everyone's like, mate.
You're right. That's what happens. Yeah.
Love the fucking turbo aggressive rational.
Yeah. So it's like Smitty being like,
epic.
Fuck this, I want to fuck you. And then like Sam Weir, what's his name? Sam Neill.
Yep.
Weir is a little bit flippant, and like Smitty loses his shit, and then DJ gets like slightly nutso for a short amount of time as a reaction to that. But is that when I feel like the problem, I've seen this movie a bunch of times, but not enough to give you an exact chronology, because it's like
there's that meeting. There's a couple of important meetings. There's that meeting where they're like, we're all like, something's going on, it's a hallucination thing, and then we're like, maybe the ship's alive. And then there's the later meeting, which is the logs. And that's when they see all the unpleasant stuff. And that's when you get that great Lawrence Fishburne line of they see all the unpleasant shit and everything's fucked and everything's gross and it's like hellish and sick and fucking nasty. And he just sees it and he goes, we're leaving.
Yeah, because it's that thing where it's like, so it turns out the guy who's all like, save yourself is actually, so they get into the log, originally they get into the logs and they see it's like the last thing that was recorded, and you've got like the captain of the ship and he's this like old American dog who also speaks Latin. He's saying like inspirational shit in Latin. We're just about to turn on the gravity drive, and then it cuts to like people just fucking going at each other, like clawing, fucking each other up, and then it like turns to like this captain who is again speaking in Latin, but he has no eyeballs and he's holding them in his hands and he's all bloodied and fucked. So it's like, that's the first like reveal. And it's like, what happened on this ship? Where people are like absolutely going nuts at each other, but also, this like very sensible Latin speaking American guy with his eyeballs in his hands.
Yeah, I would leave.
Yeah.
And then Lawrence Fishburne is just like later fucking days. Like we're
Nope.
going. Yeah.
Nope.
And so Greg Lawrence is outside the Event Horizon.
Because at what stage does Justin decide to
Baby
go
Bear
for
goes? Yeah, I thought it was round about this point because so everyone's doing their different things. Everyone's in different places again. Going, we need to
like find the logs. We're trying to like plug up the shit.
We're trying to sort this out.
Sam Neill is just like roaming about. At one stage, he ends up because at one stage, like the gravity drive turns itself back on. Sam Neill ends up in like the nether regions of the ships that look like very bright green fluorescent like fucking motherboards on all the walls in a tunnel.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which is a bit silly, but I still love it. So
it's because they're space motherboards.
Space motherboards, and but yeah, at one stage, because you got Peters in the docking bay. She's like the medical bay. She is like Justin is there. She's like pacing, doing whatever. She turns around. Justin's not there, and then they hear the fucking banging. Right? It's like that. It's just like she hears banging, banging, banging. She loses her fucking mind, runs to where everyone else is, runs into DJ, and he's like, "We didn't hear it. What the fuck are you talking about?" And then there's like so much banging that you can see like people handprints in metal, and then all of a sudden there's someone in one of the, what is it called? Wait, the space ejection somethings.
Airlock.
Airlock. Thank you. Look, I've had this many wines. And then it's like, so it's Justin, because she's like, oh, I forgot that I lost Justin. He'd got himself in one of those airlocks. He's in this like weird comatose catatonic thing, been like, they're coming, like it's fucked, like whatever. And then he's like basically does something, so he's going to be ejected into space whilst not himself. Then the countdown starts, and then he becomes himself again, and he's like, fucking save me, I don't want to die. Like, it's really a bit, it's
really well done. Like, it's really well done, where it has this kind of like horrible noise happening while he's catatonic, and he's not catatonic, but he's like in this trance,
it's like
seeing the dark, and they're coming, etc. And then he pushes the button, and the sound just completely changes to the sound like escaping gas, etc. And he's like, what's going on? And you just immediately know, like without too much more information, you just know, oh, it's him again, and he's about to be ejected.
And he doesn't want to.
Imagine waking up in an airlock that's about to be decompressed.
And so then you've got, and you're right, Karen, as you said,
you've got Julie trying to fix things but can't, because once he's pushed the button or whatever, like
the manual override or whatever, so it's gonna happen. Then you've got fucking like Lawrence Fishburne, luckily outside in space, they're just like, come over here. He's coming. He's like patched through. He's just like, this is what I want you to do. Like, make yourself a ball. Like,
and close your eyes.
All the air from your lungs. Do all the things. And you've just got this guy who just like he looks at his arms, and all of the veins are sticking out because the air is being fucked. And then it's like, so he's not following any instructions. And then eventually they can't override it. This thing opens. At least he does make a bit of a ball. So I feel like
he makes a ball, and he's screaming, which leads me to believe that the air will escape his lungs.
And there's blood coming out of his mouth, and then when his eyes, he throws out, and then Lawrence Fishburne like grabs him and like pushes him, because he's like space projected himself with this guy, pushes him back, but it's fucked. It's so fucked, guys.
It's such a horrible scene.
It's a horrible scene. But people have survived this. Like, people have survived like something like up to 90 seconds or 2 minutes or thereabouts in the vacuum.
And he was out, what, like 15 seconds?
What a crybaby.
Justin, you're fine.
Absolute crybaby. No, people have really survived it. It's quite well done. It doesn't explode, because you wouldn't explode.
Yeah. No, but it's this thing where it's like
Santa's out. Not to say you wouldn't have a terrible time.
Yeah.
And but I actually had, that's one of the scenes that has really stuck with me, and I really can't watch it.
You can't unsee it, no, that one.
I actually forgot that he survives, because it's just
it's like and there's blood in the eye, and it's just like my eyes, and then like Lawrence Fishburne is like, don't think about them.
And there was also that horrible scene, like while he's still in and he knows he's going to go out, and he's come back to himself, where he's like reaching for Mama Bear, and like she's already had all these horrible scenes with her son at home, and her hallucinations. Like, Mama Bear, open the door, and she's like, I can't do that, baby bear, and he's just like, oh, it's
gross.
Very, but anyways,
the Mama Bear, baby bear thing makes it that much more effective, I think.
Yeah, it really, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. So he's back inside, and he's in the medical bay, catatonic again.
having had a terrible time and continuing to.
And basically, the line is what he'll live, but he won't be pretty.
Yes.
And then I feel like it's at that stage where like Mama Bear is like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, but I'm not going back to the medical bed. I'm trying to work out when is it that DJ tells Lawrence Fishburne, hey, so I've been like looking at those logs again. It turns out that like the person didn't say like, save me. The person was saying, save yourselves from hell.
Yeah, it's round about then.
About them.
Yeah.
And I love it that we go into it and we hear it and we stop and we start and we heard the audio and the whatever. And I was just like, as Karen, we established in our last Stemology recording, the one before that, I did Latin at university. And it's true, they do really say, save yourselves from hell.
So yeah, so I think you might be right. I think maybe she goes back to the bridge, and that's when they have the second meeting with the horrible. Oh, it's been to hell is where the ship has been, or some outside the universe equivalent of hell. Yeah. So they're going to leave, and this is when things start to go very awry because
like Weir has already
fixed the Lewis and Clark, right? So we fixed the Lewis and Clark.
It's like fucking airtight.
It's gaffed to the max.
We're going to GTFO.
Gun and like some just like random metal. I was thinking about like re-entry and things, like how's that going to work? It's like no worries, it's like bolted and it's metaled and
space gaff fixed. If you didn't fix your problem, you didn't use enough space gaff is the only conceivable problem. Yeah, so that's right.
But then they try to re-stabilize the pressure, and then there was like there's air coming out, and it's like, I'll just stick something over the top of that again.
I love that because that was the space equivalent of checking your barbecue gas line with soapy water. Like I really enjoyed that because you were just like, we're still venting some stuff. Yeah, that's fine, but we can deal with that. That didn't add anything to the plot. It was just a nice detail.
10 minutes, like something like a very small amount of time to fix the space hole in the spaceship.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. So they go to that's when they go to the bridge because Peters has deciphered the logs. They see all the hell shit. Lawrence Fishburne is like, we're out of here, and then we're going to blow it up, which makes Sam Neill very unhappy.
Yeah, because what we didn't say is, there's the bit with the banging, and Sam Neill is just like creepy man sitting in a chair. He's sitting in like some chair, and he's all like, I'm in my chair, and then it like the ship goes like bang, 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 and he's like, I'm alive, and it's like, this is real. It's very, Sam Neill is so fucking creepy in this movie. Yeah. In such a magnificent way. I love
he's great.
I love everything about him.
And we don't expect him to be the baddie. Fundamentally, you don't expect that Sam Neill, the gawky scientist from the start of the film, is going to be the
everyone's favorite paleontologist. That's he's not a bad man.
But this is the point where he starts to depart from that view. So,
and we'd already so is this the point where I'm confused about the order?
He gets
it doesn't matter.
But they're all getting set to go. They fixed the ship, but they still need some things from the Event Horizon to go.
They got to get
they need those tubes of.
They got the CO2 scrubbers.
Yeah.
So they got it because like that is they took the ones from Lewis and Clark, put them on the Event Horizon so they could breathe for a bit. Now it's like
so you need to get them back. So
CO2 scrubbers. But what
Peter's off doing that.
Yeah, but what we also flagged was like when they first got to the Event Horizon, you got this like very, very long bridge that connects like the actual part of the ship to like the fucking like gravity drive. And there were all these like weird little boxes along the way. And like Lawrence Fishburne was like, what are those? And it's like, well, these are explosives. And if something fucks up, like we can just like explode these things. It like separates this like bit from the main part of the ship and you can use it as like an emergency pod. So what like crazy man Sam Neill has done, well, we haven't realized it's like
that seems like a hell of a way to design a spaceship. Like,
I know.
Just explosives just everywhere. They're
explosives.
And they're just lying out. Just there.
Yeah, just literally they're not even just series of fucking explosive.
Why does this surprise us though? We've got like the spiky ball. If no gravity, like you are going to be in
2040 whatever, Arc health and safety doesn't exist, Karen.
No,
it became like not important. But yeah,
impaled on spikes or exploding.
That's fine.
That's what's going to happen.
So it's like Smitty sees that Sam Neill had come back to the Lewis and Clark, but he sees him leaving the Lewis and Clark, and he's just like, yo, I see like Weir was like, he's coming back to the Event Horizon. Like, I don't know what the fuck is that. Has been fucking tampering here. You've got Lawrence Fishburne, who's just like, that's weird. And then he, in his peripheral vision, he sees maybe a missing explosive block, and he's just like, hold that thought. And he runs over and he's like, fuck. And he comes back and he's like, Smitty, get the fuck off the Lewis and Clark. Like, Weir has taken one of these explosive blocks. It's probably with you. And so like Smitty is like, I don't want to go back to the Event Horizon. So he's looking for this thing. And then he finally finds it and he opens it up, and there's like 5 seconds to go. And it's just like, I think this is a row, because it's like, what would you do? Because 100% I would do what he did. You'd be like, 5, 4, 3, 2, and he just kind of drops his head and braces.
But the thing is, like, I don't know if this is like an HD foible, but like when you look at the countdown, there's a disarm button right there. Like there's a button.
To be honest, like I don't.
Big button at the bottom of the screen. Noticed that, disarm.
Yeah, wow.
And he had a good 6 sequence, and he's an
expert.
Was
just like,
yeah,
and then just dies.
He does. But and it's important for the plot that he does.
Yeah. So Smitty's dead. What was happening? Cooper was finished doing shit on the outside. So when that explodes and he's semi-attached to the fucking Lewis and Clark, he gets like blown off into space. And that, if I have any criticisms of this movie, which I don't really, but I slightly do, it's the fact that this motherfucker, so he's attached to this, it's like this like spinning shell of a bit of a ship, and he's gone out and he decides he's going to come back by like depleting his oxygen tank and just like sort of shooting himself. But it's like he doesn't think about anything. He just goes around like, yep, it's time to go. And he just presses
the man who hates physics
somehow manages to, at the exact correct moment, press the button that shoots air out of him, which will shoot him exactly, not even like, because it's like from the distance, you can't see anything. But not only is it in the right direction, eventually he will hit exactly at the Event Horizon main window.
He's in space. Like Event Horizon's like in the clouds, and he's like, when he does this, he's in space.
He's in fucking space. Like he's well outside of it, and he's just like, I will have to do this thing. And also, like, can we not talk about the fact that like he's like deploying all the fucking oxygen from his tank so he can? It's like, why can he breathe for so long? Why can he breathe for so long, and how is it that he exactly times that? It's like, that is my only criticism of this excellent movie. That's too much for me. That's too much. That's ridiculous.
This is the only shark jumpery for
everything else. It's logical and it's sound, and
that's
exactly
very
what
logical.
In space. I get it. That's your steampunk death gyroscope. Like, fine.
Yeah.
But not that. No.
So that's all happens.
Sean Pertwee dead.
Oh yeah, he's well dead.
He's well dead.
He's well dead. Yeah.
So Mama Bear.
Oh yeah. So she still was collecting the
space tubes.
But then she sees her
son.
Again. And guys, we have established that these are not real people, and you're hallucinating.
I know, but
chase it. Mate,
but look, if the ship can, although he did go in the goo, but if the ship can make what's his face go out and try and push himself out the airlock, then who knows what else he can do. No, but so I kind of was like, I mean, this didn't bother me so much as some of the other things. I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, she knows it's hallucination, but actually we know the ship's alive. It's doing what it wants, right? So she drops all of the space tubes, and she goes to follow her son, who's, just having a wee giggle and run about. And he gets her to get up.
She gets onto a high catwalk and walks towards her son, and there's no catwalk where she tries to walk, and she falls.
No, she didn't look at all. She's like runs towards her son and then just like plummets.
Yeah, and she explodes. She goes pop.
But I love it says she just like, and she hits, and you just see that reverberation, and then it's like, and it's like, yeah, she not getting up.
So she toast.
So who do we have left? We've got Big Lawrence.
We've got Sam
on the Event Horizon.
Yeah.
So Sam Neill's on the event.
So immediately after Peters dies, because she pops,
mm-hmm.
Sam Neill comes in because he's just blown up the Lewis and Clark. But he's not quite, the movie tells us that he's not quite cooked yet, because he sees Peters and he's like, oh no,
and then reacts like a
Yeah.
human being would react, being like, oh fuck, Peters, fuck yeah, for sure.
And then he has some more hallucination time.
And is that when he rips out his little eyeballs?
Yeah, that's when he rips out his little eyeballs.
Because he's there, and then all of a sudden it's like back in the bathroom with his wife, and then like we get the story where it turns out that obviously he had been obsessed with his work. He hadn't been there. I would say his wife was like suffering some like mental health issues. She takes her own life by slitting her wrists in the bath. So that's why we'd had that like flashbacks, like the cutthroat razor and like the bathtub. And he is sitting, and like that bit kills me every time, because he's like sitting there and it's like, no. And then he's like, not again. And I was like, oh, it's because like he's reliving the suicide of his wife again. And then it's like that, but then he like fucking turns around, she's standing there with no eyeballs, and then is like, I can't remember what happened.
Something about being home.
But
he's ripping out his, it's like she has done something, but then it turns out in reality he's just like ripping out his own eyes.
Yeah.
And also within that scene, within the bath and whatnot, it turns out like, I mean, the event horizon is his all without her, because it's clear from the brief chat that he wasn't there for his wife because he was always in his work. Like he was in his work all the time, and presumably at the time the work was the event horizon. And so that seems to also imply why he's so invested in what happens to the event horizon, because without his wife, and then you're right, he pulls his eyes, because well, seems like she's pulling eyeballs out, but actually it's,
so then you cut to, and it's just him just ripping at his face, and obviously his eyes,
and
so this is his departure moment. He's now,
and we'd also had at some point, and it may have been pre this or post, but I can't remember the timeline, but Lawrence Fishburne had chatted to the doctor medic about his own hallucinations that he was having, and going,
to DJ about
and so it's really interesting that, of course, that there had been hallucinations about things that had upset you, like leaving your little son who's not in a good place, whatever. And it turned out Big Lawrence had to leave one of his crew, and basically ended up getting into bonfire because it was the only way to save the rest.
About like the fire, he's like, have you ever seen like fire in zero gravity?
Yeah.
In waves, like the whole thing is just So what had happened is like he'd been on a previous mission, something fucked had happened. There was fire in zero gravity, and he essentially like left this guy and like later days with everyone else to save everyone else. But like the person, this fiery figure he kept seeing was like the guy that he'd left. Now, my question is, at what stage does, so like Sam Neill has, not Sam Neill, fuck, I keep saying Sam Neill all the time for everyone's name. I meant Lawrence Fishburne. So he's run back on because he's like, Weir is like being a like crazy person. I'm going to go get him. At what stage, so he tells DJ, he's like, watch out for Weir. He like blew up Lewis and Clark. If you see him, take him down. And then because you've still got DJ in the medical bay, and he's like, yeah, no fucking worries. And he turns around, you got like old crazy Sam Neill there. Is that after? No, that's before he's ripped out his face, or is that after?
No, I think that's after, because I think this is when he's full evil now.
Yeah. So as soon as he has no eyes, he's
and this is the bit where it's like, if there was ever another criticism, but there isn't, but if there was, you cannot cut a man in half, take out all of his organs, and string him up by hooks in that amount of time.
But the film
too short, Dave.
But the film kind of gives him some supernatural powers by this point. Like he's kind of like, he's clearly super strong from the way that he throws people around.
Yeah, he is like,
and he's managing fine without his eyes being blind.
Yeah. But it's more the fact that you see, like the rest of it, you see it's like very mechanical. So it's like he fucks up DJ to the point that he gets him on like the table, and then you see him pick up all these medical instruments, and like one of them's like a big scalpel thing, and then you see him cut, and then you cut to DJ's face, and he's like, oh, and you're like, okay, he's cutting him. That's bad. So it's like, that's very like mechanical manual. And then like fucking 10-20 seconds later, Lawrence Fishburne appears, and like DJ has been strung up like a flesh angel from the back. So it's like he's been cut from here to here. He's open, all of his organs are out, but he's like being hung up by his skin by hooks above like the medical bay. And I just think it's just a slightly short timeline, even for a magical demon spaceman.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it was still a really nice scene to sort of draw back to the horrors you'd already seen on the video. So I think I can see why they did it.
No, like I love it. I was just like, when I watched this time, it was the first time I went, that was awfully quick.
Because there's been the odd gross thing, but like not in that super hanging someone up on meat hooks, and I thought that was essential to tie the tale together.
Yeah, and now at this stage we've got fucking Cooper in deep space who's managed to like deplete his oxygen to propel himself towards wherever he should be, and then we've really only got like so Weir's left, fucking Stark is left, and Captain Miller is left, and everyone else.
We've got Baby Bear, but he's
that's like he's
kind of in his tube. So where, I mean, again, you're right. Like, I don't think at any point, I keep calling her Big Jolie. What is her name in this?
Jolie Richardson.
Yeah, but what's her name what's her role?
Stark. Her name's
Stark. Susie Stark. So I think most of this film she's just been like being efficient.
She's sensible and to the side, Karen. I think she.
Okay. She's functioning to try and get us off this place. And so there had been the decision of like, well, we can break away from like the gravity ball. But is this when has Weir already set it off so that they are going to go back to hell?
I think so. So doesn't he go to the bridge with that's right. So Stark's unconscious on the bridge for some reason.
Yeah, we know. It's like we don't know
why.
Lawrence Fishburne discovers her, and she's just unconscious. Yeah.
So and he's gone there with a gun. He's got this hull ceiling.
Oh my god, wouldn't you
bolt gun thing?
Like it's huge, and it's got all these rounds, and it's like very
good.
I'd like to try that.
Yeah. So he goes and he puts it down to help Stark up, and when he goes to get it, it's gone.
And he's all like, and they was playing it cool, so he's like, let's go. I'm not going to acknowledge the fact that I had a giant fucking gun that I put just there and now it's disappeared. And then they say, they go. And then you've got Sam Neill being a psychopath in the chair again.
And the Bond villain. Bond villain spin.
He rotates and he's like turns around and he looks up and he's got no eyes and like a scratched up bloody face. And he's got the giant fucking weapon just like on his lap. Just like casually on his lap. And at that stage, and then there's like
Cooper,
that's when Cooper comes back. I was like, Cooper comes back because he's managed
to knock on the window
exactly at the ship to the fucking room they're in on the giant spacecraft, and he's there and he's like, knock knock knock, like let me in, and then Weir shoots his bolt gun at the window. And which, like, obviously then you get, like, it's a hole, you got all this air escaping, poor Cooper gets shot out into space again. But it's like, mate, don't shoot the window in the spacecraft because weirdly compromises the structural fucking integrity. And the whole thing breaks, and then you've got everything being sucked out. And I do quite enjoy that Sam Neill gets sucked out, still attached to his chair. So he's like in his old chair and he's all strapped in and everything's shaking. So what had happened was, when Lawrence Fishburne was interacting with Neil, sneaky Jolie Richardson tries to sneak up and do something. And then like Sam Neill sees and just like, fuck it, superhuman strength, like pushes her and she hits something again and she's unconscious again. So she's in the corner. So like Sam Neill gets away. Once there's the hole, he gets like ripped out of the spacecraft. Lawrence Fishburne, very strong man, manages to hold on. And then he sees that, so Sam Neill, I like, it's like, you know, when you worked, like I used to work in a bakery and they had those like anti-stress mats that you'd stand on so you wouldn't get like damage from standing for 8 hours a day, which had all like the holes and it was like, that was the thing that Sam Neill was like holding on to when he got sucked out and like,
it was not very like strong at all. Like,
no, but then also like
for anything in space, it seemed very,
hold your fingers.
Yeah, fingies, yeah. So the floor was less strong than his fingies, which seems like it should not be. But he does have superhuman strength.
It was just a mat though. Like it wasn't like, I think that was the problem. Like it wasn't the actual floor. It was just like one of those anti-stress mats that's meant to be good for standing for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And then that ripped up and he was attached to that. And then he shoots out into space. Lawrence Fishburne's holding onto something. He almost gets shot out, but then very luckily there's just like a random piece of like metal cord that he grabs and he throws back in, is about to shut the airlock, and then Jolie Richardson is still there. So then their thing is closing and he sticks a metal stick in there.
Great work, because he's never going to lose another man, is what he's saying.
Right, because this is the thing, but also it's just like, and he's just like hanging, he's like very nonchalantly like half hanging out of this thing that is at any second going to crush him, but he trusts this like one metal stick thing in a way that I don't think he should. Anyway, he gets her in, then that thing collapses. What? So how, wait, I've forgotten how the fuck does Cooper get back?
Oh,
I have seen this movie so many times.
Because my other question is in the timeline, was it before he was sucked out? But like, so it's been established, or it gets established, that the Event Horizon is on a path, on a trajectory to go back to hell. And Sam Neill, Dr. Weir, has determined that that is what they're definitely all doing. So, because they're all like, we'll just use our Event Horizon to go, now that you've exploded our ship, we're just going to, but it's like, no, you cannot do this, because the Event Horizon is on a course to go to hell. The gravity spiky bally shenanigans has been set up. We're going to do this. Was that pre or post him being sucked out the window?
That's already done.
It's already been done. So
yeah.
So we've got this challenge where the Event Horizon is going to hell. None of them want to do it. Then that window's broken. So big Dr. Weir's gone. Yeah. We're left with your dude Cooper floating about in space.
So I just looked up. I think it's true. It's like it's like fucking Jolie Richardson and Lawrence Fishburne. Like they get through the thing, it closes, they survive, and then there's this knocking at the door, and then it's like, yes. Fuck, is it Weir? No, it's Cooper. There's no explanation.
That's right. Yes. You're right.
No explanation is how he gets back. But anyway, he fucking gets back.
Magic, space magic.
And then it turns out that so fucking Weir had already set this thing up to do bad stuff.
Go to hell. To go
do bad stuff.
Yeah.
And so then Lawrence Fishburne is like, all right, I'm gonna have to fucking explode. It's like now we like flashback to when we learned about why these explosives existed. It's like we can fucking explode the hell bit off the spaceship, and we can get into the front bit, which can be used as like an escape pod.
The hell bit, by far the worst bit of the ship.
Yes.
So we'll just pie that. Yeah. Pie the hell bit, take the front bit, go away from the hell bit, and Bob's your uncle.
But wait, am I getting confused? It's fucking, and then he goes back to the hell bit to explode it, and Sam Neill's there.
Yeah, he does. So
he's part of the ship now.
Yes, because he goes. So they're all setting up to leave.
Yeah.
But for some reason, has to go back to the hell bit, maybe to explode it or set it up for explosion. And that's when he gets the hallucination.
Doesn't he have a hallucination of fire that drives him down there?
Oh, no, that's it. You're right.
Right, yeah. He's like setting up all the explosives. There's a fire hallucination. He ends up in like the hell sphere.
And then he hallucinates his former crew member that was on fire.
And then he's like, "You're dead, motherfucker. You're not you." And
you're like, "Yeah."
And then Sam Neill's like, "You're right. It's me." And he's got eyes again.
And he's got a wee cut up face.
And he's like
very
real, just
like razory-ish kind of.
Very like deep incision face kind of thing.
But it would take a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
Due to oneself.
Yeah, it's like not, again, but then we've discovered that he can work at superhuman speeds, like the time that he cuts Jason Isaacs down the middle and hangs him up. Yeah, for sure.
Eagle.
And so they have a wee chat.
And that's because he's got his little explode. So Lawrence Fishburne's got his little explodey thing to explode everything. And then he has like a bit of a fisticuffs.
Yeah, so he's the explodey thing has fallen away, and I think they have a bit of a chat again, maybe, because that's when it's like, no, we're going to hell. We go to hell. The ship wants me to stay alive. Look, I'm here. We're all going to go. This is what's going to happen. And I think, is that where he starts to have visions about, Lawrence Fishburne has visions. He gives them visions of what they're going to see.
He gives them
and it's all of his crew having a horrendous time, and again very fleshy, viscerally bleh.
Real visceral,
and then there's a bit of a,
and then like
you have a bit of a rollick,
a bit of a rollabout, but
then he says, like,
Lawrence gets his button back.
And he presses his button. I can't remember what the dramatic thing is. It's very poignant and very dramatic, and he presses his button and the whole fucking thing explodes.
The hell bit is gone.
And then you've got Cooper and Jolie Richardson in a little thing, and they get into their little like stasis pod things, and then you're like, they're saved. And then cut to like whenever they get rescued by the rescue crew, and they come in, and like fucking Jolie Richardson comes out and she's all like a little bit overwhelmed and shit. And then turns out that one of the rescuers is Sam Neill with his fucked up face, but then she's just like wigging out, and it wasn't.
She's just got PTSD, and it's like,
she got some, I say she's wigging out. She has a proper PTSD. Experience.
And you know, final jump scare of the film. So next, and then it ends with, what's the music? Is it The Prodigy?
It's a fucking Prodigy.
Yeah, I also just love the end music. So it's just like, so yeah,
10 stars.
I think it's one of these ones, you know, we were talking last week about Raw and how you wouldn't want to watch it again per se, but you quite like I have those feelings about Event Horizon. I don't know if it'd be one sorry Sophie, but it's not one that I would necessarily rush to watch again, but just That's because fine. I find the imagery in it quite disturbing, which is weird given the amount of horror I watch, but I think
you're problematic, Karen. I think it's fine to feel that.
So I don't really enjoy watching it. I like the ideas in it and I like the film, but it's not one that I necessarily put on very often because it upsets me. But it upsets me in some of the bits that aren't even so much the horror, but like the being lost in space, questionable physics aside, whatever, that, you know, even when we went to see like Gravity and stuff, I can't watch films where someone is just floating about in space aimlessly because that really scares me. And also that whole being outside the airlock.
Did I tell you that I finally watched Interstellar?
Oh no, you didn't.
I just laughed the whole way through. Evan got quite annoyed with me because I was like, okay. I was like, look, it's one that I never ended up saying. Like, I'm gonna like, let's watch it. And then I just sat there going like, what? Like something would happen, I'd go, what? But there is the bit where I was like, this is mental. Like, not only is he floating through outer space, now into a fucking black hole. Like, are you kidding? I was like, do you know what happens when you enter a black hole? Not that. Like, I just got so angry. Anyway, so I saw Interstellar recently and I didn't love it.
No. Also, it lost me at the love in the fifth dimension is what this film should be called.
Yeah.
And when you think of it as being called that, it reveals everything that's wrong with it.
Like, do you know what's a great movie? Contact. We didn't need it in Interstellar. We already had it. It was called Contact. It had Jodie Foster and it was quite old.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So Event Horizon, what do you think of Event Horizon?
You know, I like it. I don't think I love it as much as Sophie loves it. And I think Sophie loves it an awful lot. So that's maybe not saying very much.
But like, I remember, so my question for you, and maybe you don't want me to reveal this in front of Sophie, but I remember
as I said, nothing can tarnish this for me. It's fine.
The first time we watched this together, because the first time I watched it was with you, you really didn't like it.
Well, the first time I watched it, it had been built up substantially to me because I said, you know, I'm a big fan of Alien, the movie, which is not a controversial point of view, but one that I hold. And people had said, oh, the other sci-fi you need to see is Event Horizon. Okay. So it kind of been built up to that standard.
And I can understand. I feel like there are a lot of like very popular movies that I disliked because people were just like, this is so good. And they went to see it. And I was like, it was good, but like, it wasn't that great. Like, so I can understand.
And I think particularly compared to like Pandorum, like this is the best conceivable version of Pandorum, the film.
I thought you were about to say that in the opposite way.
No, it's like
I'm going to tell you that we couldn't be friends anymore, and I quit stepmom.
No, not at all. No. It's got like the DNA of the film is so similar, but like this is a version of the film that is like better than it needs to be. Like there's so much about it that works, and is better than it needs to be. The cast is great, and it looks great, and like the characterization is really good, and there's lots that I like about it.
And I think you're right, because I think returning to that, when I was told to watch it, it was also like, this is going to be like, this is the scariest film you will ever see, which I also don't like it when you get that, because also it depends on what your taste is in scary films and what scares you. So I find that quite hard, but and for me with Event Horizon, it does have a few jump scares that still get me, but it's actually more the space stuff, even more than the spaceship going to hell. It's the space stuff.
Like you're trapped, like you're stuck in space, in the abyss.
I do have, I think, two objections. The first objection is kind of a science objection of like, oh yeah, the ship's been to hell. It's like,
it's like Dave, it's just like this like parallel universe. It's like happens to be hell.
Yeah, like the way I think about it too, it's just like, you know, like in the Mist, when they've like cut into another place where things spill out. I thought maybe you could just do that in space.
Where they speak Latin.
Here's the thing about string theory. We exist on like a plane which exists in higher dimensional space, and when our plane hit the plane next to us, that caused the energy for the Big Bang.
Yeah.
I think because of that, like it's not too, no, it's fucked. Like it's dumb. Like,
Yeah.
it's a bit dumb, Dave. But again, it's like, as I said, you can criticize it all you want. I've got like, I don't know what it is about this movie, but like, I just love it so much that I realized there are a lot of like not a lot, but there's like enough shortcomings to be like, but I'm like, I just like they.
But it's done so well with such great cast.
Yeah.
They just don't phase me.
Done well, great cast, great acting. So
yeah.
I think
that's one. The other is a related point.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, so with that, like there's a couple of points where Weir is being recriminated by other members of the crew, and they're like, you broke the laws of physics, you brought this upon us.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like this weird, like, oh, are you scientists? Like, it's like Indiana Jones 4, where the moral of the film is, if you learn too much, your head will explode.
Oh, but even like fucking, it just reminds me of like Jurassic Park, and it's just like
yeah,
you could do this thing, and you didn't even spend any time to think whether or not you should do it.
Exactly.
And you did it, and it's fucked, and it's your fault, 100%. Yeah.
It's a little bit preachy and a little bit anti-science.
It's a quite preachy. Yeah.
Those are my problems. Otherwise,
and this is the thing. And as I said, like this is one that I don't know what it is about it, but it's just like, because you guys know me, I can be quite critical of everything all the time. And for some reason, it's like, and I watch it, and even when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, but I just still, there's something about the movie. It fills me with joy. And so, like, unlike Karen, I could go fucking watch it right now, and I would have the time. Despite having watched it yesterday, I would still have the time of my life if I put it on again. And I don't know, I'm more intrigued by that. Why do I like this movie so much? Don't know. I can't answer that.
You just love Big Sam Neill.
I just love Sam Neill. He's just, and it's like, do you follow him on Twitter? He is delightful. He's got his pigs. He's just, I just love him so much. Sam Neill. I just think if in real life, like, we would be friends if he knew me. Do you think he would like me?
Absolutely,
yes.
Sophie. There's no question in my mind.
Okay, it's fine.
All right, so that was Event Horizon. Thanks, Sophie. I think that was a good choice. Says a lot about you, or doesn't, I don't know. But yay, Samuel.
Even if it does, like, I'm not mad at that.
And Dave, you're next week.
So next week we're doing The Thing.
We're doing The Thing.
Fine.
The original.
I have not seen
not the
it, like,
original.
a long time. And so
Okay.
I'm coming in like almost clean slate, because it's like I saw
So,
it so long
we're
ago
doing
that I remember zero.
Okay, you're gonna have a lovely time. We'll do the original.
But not, so there was a thing from outer space, but that's a different
We're not doing The Thing from Outer Space, which is an
Doing, like,
even
older
older
film
Yeah,
from
we're
the
doing
50s or 60s,
The Thing.
which I've never seen,
No,
actually.
but so it's not your favorite. But
So
we
it
can come
cannot
back
be
to
my
that.
favorite.
Yeah, it can't be your favorite, but we can put it on the list for future.
So we're watching The Thing. You can watch the prequel as an optional extra, but it's not required.
I'm gonna
Because it's
write
not
that
your
down.
favorite.
And we won't cover it. But if you
We're
feel
watching-
like it, you can watch the prequel immediately before watching The Thing.
Prequel optional extra.
Yeah.
But we definitely have Kurt Russell, because again, you know, you were talking about your love of Sam Neill. Kurt Russell in this. Yeah, go Kurt Russell.
That beard, though.
It's so good. So good. Love it.
All right, we'll talk
Sounded
about
like
that.
that was almost a criticism, Dave, and then Karen's just like, so good. That beard, though, so good.
I know, I meant more like that beard, though.
Oh,
That's
you
fine.
seemed
Sounded
like
like you
you
were
criticized
being
the beard.
slightly critical, and then Karen came through with the, oh, and I was like, uh-oh.
Trouble in marriage, man.
Right, I'm going to stop recording.
Good.
Thanks, Sophs.